Us wrestling fans see NXT as WWE's third brand. To the WWE itself, NXT is still technically its developmental arm, despite what they may say. A blend of out-and-out rookies, seasoned pros who need to adapt to the WWE style, and those who creative on main just don't have anything for, NXT has a diverse talent pool and manages to regularly put on genuinely jaw-dropping wrestling matches. Then, before you know it, NXT's best stars have done all there is to do on the black and yellow brand and are plucked from the Performance Center to find their fortune on the main roster. Before Vince inevitably gives up after 2 weeks and squanders their potential, that is. But not every main roster superstar did their time in NXT, with a select few given the superstar treatment and sent straight to main upon signing with WWE. Well, some were given the superstar treatment anyway. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and this is 10 WWE superstars who skipped NXT. Join us. Number 10, James Ellsworth. James Ellsworth wasn't supposed to make it, and he especially wasn't supposed to make it in WWE. 5'9" with zero chin and even less muscle mass, Ellsworth was always destined for small-time indie shows. But one day, WWE were in Baltimore and needed some local enhancement talent to come in and be destroyed by Braun Strowman. Ellsworth stepped up, got clobbered, and became an internet sensation overnight. And before you know it, Ellsworth was back again to get battered by The Miz, then again to beat WWE Champion AJ Styles, but the less said about that, the better. T-shirts were released with his gormless little face on them, action figures, the lot. Ellsworth switched his attention to the women's division where he hitched himself to Carmella and helped her win the first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Again, the less said about this, the better. You will struggle to find a better example of right place, right time in wrestling history than James Ellsworth. Although his run in WWE was brief, it was far longer than it had any right to be. And the fact that WWE management let him do everything he did, WWE title shots and a WrestleMania appearance, without stepping foot in developmental is mind-boggling. Fair play to the chinless gimp. Number 9, Bobby Lashley. Oh, Adam, you moron. Lashley was in WWE before NXT was a thing, so he doesn't count. Okay, so while you are correct on the former, you are wrong on the latter because of one man, Drew McIntyre. See, both men were part of WWE during the PG era, both held singles titles, both left and reinvented themselves, both won the Impact World title, but only Drew went to NXT when he returned home. Bobby was away from WWE for far longer than Drew was and spent less time in WWE during his first run. In fact, it was a decade between main roster appearances for Bobby, during which time he won everything from MMA bouts to pretty much every title in TNA to the approval of Antonio Inoki. And therein is why Bobby went straight to Raw while Drew stopped by NXT. Vince McMahon clearly thought Lashley was bigger box office draw than Drew and didn't need to resharpen his skills in NXT. Was this the right call? Hard to say really. Until he joined the Hurt Business, Lashley's second WWE run was mainly underwhelming, whereas Drew became the face of the company and won the WWE title at WrestleMania. Plus, think of what an unleashed Lashley could have done in NXT. Might have been incredible. Number 8, Cedric Alexander. For this entry, you could have really put pretty much every performer from early days 205 Live, but that would be boring, so we plucked a name out of the magical cruiserweight hat, and it read Cedric Alexander. 205 Live is a weird one though. It wasn't NXT, but it wasn't quite main roster. It was just its own bungled attempt at reigniting a fire under the cruiserweight division without realizing that it wasn't 1997 WCW, and that style isn't as fresh as it once was. Still, I suppose for some, 205 Live was its own kind of WWE finishing school before life on main. But aside from Cedric and a handful of others like Mustafa Ali, the majority of WWE's cruiserweight commandos either stayed on 205 Live or shuffled over to NXT along with the title. Like others on this list, and to be honest, 99% of actual NXT call-ups, Cedric's time on main hasn't been exactly great. His performances are always top draw, but until he joined the Hurt Business, management just didn't know what to do with him, despite him getting a pinfall victory over Drew McIntyre on Raw just a week after cosplaying as janitor Gary Garbett. Number 7, The Good Brothers. As NXT started to take over the world and sign up every great talent on the market, it wasn't too long before they set their eyes on New Japan, signing former World and Intercontinental Champion Shinsuke Nakamura in a huge deal. Shortly after, AJ Styles made his way from New Japan to WWE, and people were gossiping and salivating at the prospect of more of New Japan's top stars coming to the Fed. They got their wish, as former Bullet Club linchpins Doc Gallows and Machine Gun Carl Anderson appeared in a WWE ring and beat the snot out of the Usos to a huge pop. What did this mean? Would they team with Styles and/or Finn Balor and bring Bullet Club to WWE? Well, kind of. Unfortunately for the Good Brothers, the bosses never really cared for tag team wrestling, and despite multiple tag team title reigns, none of what they did really felt very important. One minute they were with Styles and beating up John Cena, which was great, but the next they were pretending pickled eggs were the New Day's testicles, or they would be with Balor for like 10 seconds. It was all a bit of a mess. Gallows and Anderson were released in April 2020 and never looked back, joining Impact Wrestling and promoting their utterly bonkers Talk and Shopper Mania events. Number 6, Sin Cara. Triple H's baby boy. His little lucha sensation baby boy. The one that was meant to take WWE by storm and convince every Hispanic and Latin American wrestling fan to send envelopes full of cash to Titan Towers so the CEO could buy a second boat, El Sexy Bitch Dos. Didn't quite work out that way though, did it? Don't get me wrong, landing Mystico was a huge coup for WWE, and even the rebranding as Sin Cara was still pretty neat. But taking a huge lucha star and throwing him straight into the WWE style of doing things without as much as an informative pamphlet was always going to go awry. At this time, WWE had two options for Sin Cara: either the humiliating rigmarole of NXT The Game Show, or throw him in former developmental league Florida Championship Wrestling for a month or two to get used to the style, ring size, and so on. But they did neither. And soon, everyone's favorite botch machine, not named Sabu, was tripping over everything on Raw as Triple H buried his head into his hands and Vince cancelled his boat order. Still, they persevered with Sin Cara for a bit, but his WWE career never came close to fulfilling its potential, and he went back to Mexico in 2014. Number 5, Mike Kanellis. The greatest. This one was just hard to watch. In Ring of Honor, Mike Bennett was a decorated tag wrestler, having won gold in ROH and New Japan, and was a major focal point of the promotion due to his work in the Kingdom with Adam Cole, Matt Taven, Matt Hardy, and wife Maria Kanellis. Bennett and Maria then made their way to Impact, where Bennett won the X Division title and picked up victories over the likes of Jeff Hardy and Drew Galloway before WWE came a-calling. Debuting at Money in the Bank 2017, Mike Bennett was now Mike Kanellis, and belter of a theme song aside, it was underwhelming. Throw in the fact that the change from Bennett to Kanellis meant that Mikey Boy would be playing second fiddle to Maria in many fans' eyes, and this was DOA. And it was. Mike and Maria lost their first feud against Sami Zayn, and substance abuse issues meant that Mike needed rehab, while Maria became pregnant and needed time off the road. When Mike returned, he looked incredible, refreshed and motivated, but WWE had given up. The Kanellises did bugger all. They asked for their releases, and eventually got them during the mass talent cull of April 2020. Number 4, Dominik Mysterio. It's been no secret that for years, WWE have been after the second Rey Mysterio to tap into that all-important Hispanic demographic. They had a go with Sin Cara and Alberto Del Rio, and to a lesser extent Andrade and his ragtag bunch of mates. Then a light bulb went off. If you want the next Rey Mysterio, then go straight to the source and recruit his son, Dominic Guerrero Mysterio. Not seen regularly on WWE TV since fathers Eddie and Ray battled for his custody in a ladder match, Dominik started popping up here and there in 2019, and everyone just knew it was only a matter of time before he would lace up his boots and finally do the graps in a WWE ring. Rather than season him in NXT, WWE management said, nah, he's alright, his dad is good, so he must be good too, and threw him in at the deep end, booking him against former WWE champion Seth Rollins at SummerSlam. And you know what? Dominik was alright. Good even. Very, very good in parts. Dominik is still very young and quite green, but there's still time for him to head to NXT for a little bit to add the finishing touches to an already promising prospect. Number 3, Braun Strowman. Big, brash, bulldozer bollocks Braun Strowman is what we like to refer to in the biz as a Vince McMahon guy. Absolutely massive and built like a giant wombat. These Vince McMahon guys have appeared throughout history and are usually very strongly pushed on WWE programming. Braun was no exception to the rule, having a couple of dark matches and warm-up matches on house shows before being unveiled as the black sheep of the Wyatt family in 2015, battering Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose on his debut. For Braun, this was definitely the right move. His huge OTT nature and moveset would have probably bombed in an NXT that was showcasing the likes of Finn Balor and co. And for the most part, Braun has been treated pretty well on the main roster. His feud with Roman Reigns was great, and his path of destruction was refreshing, capturing some of the hallowed mayhem of the Attitude Era. That said, there have been missteps along the way. His heel turn with Dolph Ziggler was a bit pants, and for all that his tag team title win with Nicholas was fun, it did hamper his momentum a little. Vince, just let Braun kick holes in people and throw horses into the sun. It's not that hard. Number 2, Ronda Rousey. While WWE have featured myriad crossover stars throughout its history like Kurt Angle, Ken Shamrock, Dan Severn, and Ken Patera amongst others, none have made the transition from sport to sports entertainment with as much fanfare as Ronda Rousey. A huge wrestling fan as a child, Rousey became one of the biggest sports stars in the world due to her dominant run in UFC, and decided to swap the octagon for the squared circle after Holly Holm and others sent her jaw to Jupiter. Initially appearing front row at WrestleMania 31 and helping The Rock get one over on the McMahon-Helmsley clan, it wasn't until a couple of years later that Ronda officially signed, trained, turned up at Royal Rumble 2018, and pointed at the WrestleMania sign so hard she looked like she was about to explode. Ronda took to the business like a duck to water, and her debut match at WrestleMania 34 with Kurt Angle versus Triple H and Stephanie McMahon was superb, defying pretty much all expectation. Rousey was off to the races and had a whirlwind year that saw her devour the entire women's division, then headline WrestleMania 35 against Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. The best rookie year ever? Definitely in the conversation, and she didn't need to spend a minute in Full Sail to accomplish it. Number 1, AJ Styles. The Royal Rumble is the best show of the year for many reasons, one major reason being you never know who's going to appear. Cue Royal Rumble 2016. The crowd counted down, Roman Reigns looked puzzled, and AJ Styles walked out as every wrestling fan from Alabama to Zanzibar lost their marbles. We never thought we would see the phenomenal one grace a WWE ring, and if he did, a lot assumed that he would be in NXT. And he would probably have a rubbish new name like Stumper Underwood or something. But no, Styles was here, and importantly, he was here to stay. The WWE Universe took to him straight away, and after a heap of incredible performances, he became WWE Champion after just 8 months with the company. While it would have been nice to see Styles in NXT rekindling old rivalries with Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura, WWE made the right move in having Styles skip developmental and become the face that runs the place. Plus, he got to mix it up with those lads when they eventually made it to the main roster anyway. It's even been alleged that Vince McMahon himself regretted not signing Styles earlier, with AJ coming in aged 38. But it's a double-sided sword. Had Vince signed a young AJ Styles, then he may not have become the main eventer that he is to this day. And that would not have been phenomenal. It would have been crap.